All right, folks, how we doing today? So I want to bring to you something that I've been kind of cooking up a little bit, thinking about for a long time, but just recently I was able to put it together due to a company that I was previously unaware of called, I think it's BKF Firearms, and they specialize in AR stuff, but mostly a lot in like retro AR type stuff. And if you've watched my previous video about retro futurism and retro AR is becoming the latest, greatest, big, best thing that is, very popular these days. It definitely fits in line also to what I was talking about there. So in this particular instance, I finally put together a XM177E1 E2, more E2, kind of clone build, I guess. So it's not going to be, super duper hyper accurate, ultra, oh my gosh, super clone correct type. But you know what? I think this is like an 80% solution, and it makes me happy, and it shoots relatively well, well enough, I should say. So, yeah. So BKF Firearms was able to provide this upper here, which is a 14.5. No, actually it's not a 14.5. So I think I ordered a, I was thinking my M forgery. I believe this is the 11.5 pin and weld with the big muzzle device. I'm not going to call it a moderator because it's not built like the original ones are from the XM177s. But yeah, a big flash hider, essentially, muzzle device here, pin and welded on here to get the appropriate legal barrel length to make this not an SBR and not a pistol. So this is in fact a rifle and totally legal under current law, although I hope that will change at some point. But anyway, so this is I would say like, mostly faithful reproduction of an XM177 E2. The handguards are correct, delta ring is correct. The bayonet lug here is not, but you know what? I'm not really too worried about it. I'm not going to grind this off. I actually kind of like it being there. Because for me personally, whenever I see like an AR that doesn't have the bayonet lug, I think like Van era type AR, which is silly and dumb. So I'm just going to leave it on there. And it's fine. It's not getting in the way of anything. Of course, we have A1 upper receiver here. Although I did opt for the shell deflector, even with also the teardrop forward assist on here. Because like with my A1 that I mentioned earlier, my A1 is also technically a C7 upper, the same type of deal here. Because I tend to shoot my rifles left-handed because I am cross-eye dominant. So that means if you shoot an AR that does not have a shell deflector like this, the brass tends to come back at a very distracting angle. And I have actually been hit in the face before from a not properly tuned AR before. It did not have a shell deflector, and that brass was hitting me in the face, and it was very uncomfortable. So I very much prefer having this shell deflector here, even if it is anachronistic and not correct for this gun. For my intended purposes, for just wanting to have fun, to shoot this gun and kind of get like I said, the 80% solution to how an XM177 would have shot, that's perfectly fine with me. I don't really care too much. The lower, of course, is just a regular bog standard Aero Precision standard lower. Put just a basic mil-spec parts kit into there, and I have a A1 reproduction grip here. Of course, the A1 grips are far superior to the A2 grips because they don't have that stupid little finger flange thing there. So these are far, far better in every way. And I was also able to find a source for a car stock. So this is not like your M4 like waffle pattern standard stocks like you're going to see on like your M4s and stuff. This is actually a car pattern stock, which is pretty cool. Now, it is not, exactly like the original aluminum ones that have like the kind of glossy black paint on them. And I have actually seen those. So when I was deployed, I saw a ton of 10th Mountain Division dudes still rocking M4s with aluminum car stocks with the original black paint on them, everything, right? Even though, their rifles were rocking like ACOGs, aim points, whatever, they got the 320 grenade launchers and stuff. They were still rocking the car stocks. So I thought that was pretty cool. So this is about as clone correct as I care to be. Now I realize I could get a aluminum car stock, but they're like 120, 150 bucks, and frankly, I just don't really care all that much. So this fulfills the look and most of the function, I would say. It's also pretty cool because it has multiple positions that you can lock it in, just like a regular M4 stock, not like the original cars, which is, original cars were all the way in or they were all the way out. So this one I can adjust as I want. So I think that's pretty cool. But it still makes for a very nice, handy, compact package. And of course, I got my 20 round magazine in here, as was customary for the time. So these BKF uppers, right? I want to say they are, I'm like 90% sure it's just rebranded Aero Precision parts, because they have a 1 MOA guarantee with proper ammo and everything else, right? Which I really only saw that with Aero Precision Ballistic Advantage type guarantees and stuff. So considering the price point that these uppers come in, which is not all that much money, I want to say I paid like what, 450, 480, 500 maybe, all said and done, for this upper here. No BCG or anything, but still not a bad price considering. There are more expensive options, of course, from the different places like PSA's H&R line. I know they charge around 1,000 to 1,200 bucks for a complete XM177 or commando style AR like this. But again, some of those models didn't have all the features that I wanted, because I actually really do like the H&R side of PSA, because I don't really like PSA all that much as a company, but I do like H&R. I have not seen any of the H&R stuff available, or in stock anyways, that has the shell deflector C7 type upper that I personally like. So it's nice that different companies out there are able to offer something like this. So variety is a good thing in the market. So as far as shooting goes, so God, this thing is blasty. So if you've ever shot with shorty ARs like this, you know exactly what I'm talking about when I say blasty. It's really not too bad when you're kind of sitting behind it yourself, but everyone else around you is absolutely going to know that you're shooting a shorty AR. Even with this big muzzle device on here, it is still quite an experience to be sitting around this when it goes off. So I can kind of relate to even like my dad's experience, where he said he was rocking one of these way back in the day, doing stuff in countries and places that we don't talk about to this day. He said like the report on these things was just absolutely obnoxious, and I can kind of understand where he's coming from. Like I said, anyone who's been at an indoor range, or really anywhere, with a shorty AR like this, even without this big muzzle device on here, you know exactly what they're talking about as far as the concussive blast that comes off of these things. So that was definitely the case with this one. I didn't notice like any huge, big muzzle flash coming out of this. So I guess the flash hiding capabilities of this device actually does work pretty well. I haven't shot this at night or anything, or in like low light conditions yet, but during the day and everything, I didn't see any big flash off of this. So, yeah. But yeah, shooting experience wise, I mean, this is your standard carbine length. Nothing special to go on here. I put a standard. I borrowed my M4 lower for this before I put this lower together, and it had the Geisley Super 42 spring in there with an H1 buffer. Worked totally fine, very smooth. And then of course I shot it with just the regular carbine spring and buffer in here. Worked totally fine. It does recoil a little bit more. I mean, if you've shot shorty ARs, or even really anything shorter than 16 inches, you know that even a 5.56 in this format can recoil a little bit, or at least it's like jumpy. I wouldn't say the recoil is like punching into your shoulder. It's not going to hurt your shoulder, but it's like the control aspect of it and how much it rises. You definitely notice a difference when it's getting this small. So it's punchy, I guess I would say, but not punishing. But totally controllable. I can definitely see how some dudes in Vietnam, okay, they're walking around with these things, and they got them on their full auto and everything. Helicopters, commandos, spec ops dudes being in the jungle, right? I mean, just look how small this is in comparison to your body, right? So like you could totally carry this thing, and the ones they had, of course, were even smaller than this. I mean, I'm just doing this for legal length purposes, but the ones they had were even smaller. So this definitely fits the bill for like a submachine gun style kind of weapon. I mean, yeah, if I was aircrew back in the day, like, shoot, man, like helicopters, C-130s, whatever, man. Yeah, I would love to have one of these on my plane and just have it to protect myself, or, you know, if you're a door gunner or something like that, or you're in a Huey, right? And you got this little thing all packed up here, and you can just kind of do your thing as you need to, right? I mean, this is such a handy little package. So I can definitely see the appeal for this kind of weapon in that environment. So yeah, accuracy wise, I mean, it's just irons, right? So I'm not going to put an optic on this. I don't really care to personally. I mean, I've got like carry handle mounted like rails and stuff I could put on here, but I don't know. I just don't really care to. But when I did take it out to 50 yards, you know, I'm able to get 4-6 inches, you know, just kind of going not off the most stable rest. I mean, if you call it a rest, using these iron sights and just some 55 grain regular PMC, X-Tac, whatever. You know, perfectly acceptable accuracy. It's practical. Okay, you know, if you needed to use this against two-legged predators, I guess. Okay, at any distance that's meant for this kind of weapon, you could probably do it. I wouldn't say it's the most practical thing given all of the modern doodads we have today, but you know, there's nothing saying that, you know, your good old iron sights here from your old carbine here won't be able to do the job, because I think they would be able to. Reliability was 100%. Had no issues with our reliability at all. Ejection pattern, perfect, absolutely perfect. So, you know, them assembling, BKF assembling the gas tube and everything else on here, the gas ports and everything else, perfect. I believe the BCG I ran in here was just your standard kind of like micro best, like unbranded kind of just regular, you know, run of the mill standard nitride kind of BCG, nothing special. So, but yeah, it worked perfectly fine. So, yeah, everything taken together, I mean, this gun, of course, was always going to be more of like a fun build for me, and I really just wanted to get like the experience of trying one of these things out, because you know, my dad did talk about a little bit back in the day where, you know, like I said, he was doing secret squirrel stuff in places we don't talk about, using some of these things, you know, and he always said he hated these, and I really wanted to figure out why. And after hearing just how loud these things can be, I'm like, okay, I kind of get it. But back in those times, okay, back when the M4 did not exist, and this was your choice for itty bitty tiny little, like, you know, AR carbine, man, if I was back there in those days, like I said, I would 100% love to have this in like my aircraft over, you know, your musket here, you know, your 20-inch musket, right? Now, granted, I think I would feel, you know, adequately armed with either of them, but, you know, before M4s, before carbines were really like the thing, this is what you had, right? And I think this is perfectly capable for what it was. And this is kind of like the grandpappy, right, for the modern M4 carbines that we all talk about today. And of course, the further iterations of the M4 carbines, like your Mark 18s and things like that, right? Your itty bitty shorty tiny little, like, you know, 10.3 ARs that have like a gigantic quad rail with all the, you know, doodads and crap on it that makes it weigh 15 pounds, you know. But when you pick up something like this, and even with this barrel profile, you know, this is like a government profile barrel. This is not accurate to the time either, because the ones they used were much thinner than this. I would imagine this XM177 would have weighed like almost nothing back in the day, because, you know, you look at the pencil barrels for your A1s here. This A1 just doesn't weigh anything compared to your A2 or A3s, A4s. Right, so I imagine the case would be, don't fall over. I imagine the case would be much the same for your XM177s or your M4 carbines or your Colt Commandos or whatever, you know, nomenclature. Ooh, it is falling. Dang it. You know, your 723s, stuff like that, right? Using a pencil barrel or thinner profile barrel than your government profile barrel. I imagine these things would be very, very lightweight, very handy. And overall, just a nice little package to have. So I can totally see why these things are popular with those guys, high-speed dudes back in the day, doing stuff in the Vietnam jungle, right? Killing dudes, killing VC, doing the things they need to do, right? Totally get it. Totally get it. These things are awesome. So I'm glad to have put this together and got a little bit of the experience, a little bit of taste of it, right? I would feel confident even today, taking something like this out. If this was like the only option I had for like a combat fighting rifle, yeah, I could do it. Would I prefer something a little more modern? Yeah, sure. Like give me a red dot at least, right? But if I was aircrew, like even today, like if I had to go deploy my C-130 right with something like this, and this is all they had in the armory, and be like, you know what? All right, man, cool, let's send it. At least it's more firepower than my M9, right? And funny enough that I even mentioned that too, because if you look at the modern iterations of like the GAU-5, like aircrew's like survival rifle, well, guess what? It's just an itty bitty tiny like folding AR, right? So how much different is that from something like this? Not really too much different. So I also got to hold one of those in person, the GAU-5, the new versions they have. It was pretty cool to actually like be able to like hold it, look at it and stuff. But obviously I can't bring that on footage here, but it was pretty cool to get a look at that. But anyway, yeah, if my crew, I was flying somewhere like some godforsaken place somewhere on the other side of the world, and these are all the things that we had for our crew for survival and everything else like that. Yeah, dude, totally fine. So yeah, this is just a, like I said, 80% solution to get me somewhat into the realm of figuring out what a proper XM177E2 style carbine rifle would be like back in the day. And one of these days, I'm gonna take this to my dad and give it to him and say, "Hey, you remember this?" He's probably gonna be like, "God, why? Why would you bring this back to me?" But anyway, yeah, this thing has been a fun little project, a fun little carbine that I've wanted to put together, and you can't ignore the aesthetic, retro ARs are of course back in vogue, and this is just a fun little jaunt, I guess, into the uncollectible milsurp, because we're definitely not going to see, of course, a legitimate XM177E2 available to the masses like ever, because they're machine guns and they're evil. Ooh. If filthy civilians can't have those, right? So, like I said, 80% solution, it works for me. So, figured I'd bring that to you guys and kind of bring a little bit of awareness too for BKF firearms, because I don't really think they're really talked about much in the AR circles, especially not the retro circles, because like I said, I only discovered them like this year. I had no idea they were even a thing earlier. So had I known that, I would have been stuck with like actual like old surplus parts. I think Troy made a copy of this at some point a few years ago. There's Colt parts floating around. All those things are like crazy expensive. A lot of them do have like genuine use through them, so your mileage may vary in terms of like how they hold up and how they look, right? You might have like a mixed master looking kind of gun, looks kind of weird. Or you go to PSA, H&R, and you pay their prices, and maybe you get an upper that doesn't quite satisfy what you want. Like I said, I want that deflector, I want that C7 type upper. Can't really get that in the exact configuration that I want from PSA. So anyway, so yeah, I like these things. They're cool. If you get a chance to build one yourself, or get to shoot one and maybe a different configuration with like a different kind of barrel, a different kind of flash hider here at the end, or some other kind of gubbins, try an actual aluminum stock here, something like that. Or you get a chance to shoot a real one. I mean, hey, go for it, man, right? It's definitely a unique experience, and I will say this is the XM177s are definitely different enough from your standard M4 that I think it's worth a try. So if you haven't done that, give it a shot. Try to find somebody who's got one, and maybe your experiences will match mine, and you'll have a lot of fun with it. So it's just something different. In the world of ARs, where everything is kind of looking the same, everything's boring and ubiquitous. Sometimes you want to go back to the old classics, your A1s and your Vietnam style, even early GWAT, things like that, Gulf War, your A2s, and so on and so forth. So yeah, I like this old stuff. It's fun. And it's cool to be able to experience a little part of that, in my own way. So anyway, figured I'd share that with you guys, and we'll see you next time.